So these guys in a very, very nice office go after who? Job Sikhala and Nelson Chamisa. Remember Nelson Chamisa's recent statement? There was a subliminal message in his statement, and this statement that's about to follow proves that fact.
He took note of the fictitious and fallacious mischaracterization of our nation's democracy and human rights by a regime change entrepreneur and sanctions lobbyist, Job Sikhala, at the recently held
Regime change entrepreneur and sanctions lobbyist
Geneva Human Rights and Democracy Summit. It must be reiterated that Zimbabwe is a democratic state with absolute respect for human rights and the rule of law. Job Sikhala was not a political prisoner. I want you to underline that. Job Sikhala was not a political prisoner. His falsehoods are in sharp contrast to his indisputable violation of the Criminal Codification and Reform Act. It must be underscored that in Zimbabwe, no one is above the law, regardless of their political persuasion. His arrest was based on his criminal.
All right, the two issues being spoke of here: his conduct at the Geneva Human Rights meeting, then pertaining his case, his recent case, the one he recently got arrested for. So now, is this a call for another arrest? I'm going to rewind it a little bit here.
To his indisputable violation of the Criminal Codification and Reform Act, it must be underscored that in Zimbabwe, no one is above the law, regardless of their political persuasion. His arrest was based on his criminal activities, given that he incited public violence and disorder, as well as violating his bail conditions. He is on record for perennially violating bail conditions. His wishful, malicious depiction of the political situation in Zimbabwe.
Malicious depiction of the situation in Zimbabwe
is wholly and materially false. The nature of his criminality evoked the application of the relevant law and order processes. His conviction and acquittal in some of the cases attests to the impartiality and independence of the judiciary, and it would be anarchical if our laws worked in favor of a criminal's comfort. The genuine victims of human rights violations are the people of Zimbabwe who have endured the gross dehumanizing effects of illegal sanctions, and therefore deserved spotlight should be beamed on the millions of Zimbabweans who have borne the brunt of the illegal Western imposed sanctions on Zimbabwe. Then one of the members of the Fourth Estate also wanted to seek clarity about Mr. Nelson Chamisa, who abandoned his political party. That in a summary, I believe and we believe he is suffering from cognitive dissonance. The 2023 elections are over and government is properly constituted. I think we need to remind him that the authority to govern a country is derived from the people of Zimbabwe. And in this particular case, the people of Zimbabwe voted overwhelmingly for ZANU-PF and its presidential candidate, His Excellency President Idi Mnangagwa. And that if, in terms of the Constitution of Zimbabwe, there was any dispute or any challenge which is legal from Mr. Nelson Chamisa, he should have read Section 93 of the Constitution of Zimbabwe, which is very clear on the parameters, the timelines, the duration, and the processes that should...
The parameters, the timeline, the processes that should. All right, why is he talking about this? We will see at the end of this message.
Be invoked in the case of a dispute in a presidential election. He did not do that, but he keeps dreaming and dreaming, just like one of his friends before, who now believes that if he has a dream that he's going to be an icon, that he dreamt about the late opposition leader, Morgan Tsvangirai, handing over whatever powers, that all should be reminded that they should read the Constitution of Zimbabwe. The elections were held in terms of the Constitution.
All right, so this guy, what he's doing here, he's sending a message. The way he's speaking is very calm and very, very cool. This entire speak is just a message. Why is he sending a message? Would one send a message if they do not feel threatened, or as politicians, it is what they should do to avoid what may happen?
Of Zimbabwe, and that the Constitution of Zimbabwe is supreme, and that they should continuously read Section 93 of the Constitution of Zimbabwe.
They should continuously read Section 93 of the Constitution of Zimbabwe,
which sets out the parameters, the processes, and the legal framework that is provided in terms of any legal challenge on an outcome of an election. That they should wake up to reality that His Excellency the President, Dr. Idi Mnangagwa, is the head of state and government, Commander-in-Chief of the Defense Forces, and that the SADC summit will be held in Zimbabwe.
Right. He was very calm all the way. Then towards the end, he emphasizes, and that the SADC summit will be held in Zimbabwe.
Wake up to reality that His Excellency the President, Dr. Idi Mnangagwa, is the head of state and government, Commander-in-Chief of the Defense Forces, and that the SADC summit will be held in Zimbabwe. Thank you.
Now, there's been speculation that the SADC summit in Zimbabwe may be disrupted by the opposition. And in Nelson Chamisa's message, he gives a warning on what I'll call something like that, because he doesn't say it clearly, but at the same time, in not saying it clearly, his message was very, very clear. So now with this message, what are these guys up to? Again, this is the warning. It will happen in Zimbabwe. President Idi is the president of Zimbabwe, and the SADC summit will happen in Zimbabwe.
Read the Constitution of Zimbabwe. The elections were held in terms of the Constitution of Zimbabwe.
And
that the Constitution of Zimbabwe is supreme, and that they should continuously read section 93 of the Constitution of Zimbabwe, which sets out the parameters.
More than 4 or 5 times of Zimbabwe. It's another subliminal message that is very clear.
The processes and the legal framework that is provided in terms of any legal challenge.
The processes and the legal framework
on an outcome of an election, that they should wake up to reality that His Excellency the President, Dr. Idi Mnangagwa, is the head of state and government, Commander-in-Chief of the Defense Forces.
Commander-in-Chief of the Defense Forces.
That the SADC summit will be held in Zimbabwe. Thank you.
Very clear. Now, who is now in a corner? Who is now cornered? Have both guys just cornered each other? Or mwe ari mkona maki? Anyways, time will tell. Regardless of honor.